Yay. It's like the opening. Well, thanks for coming out. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, talk about what class you teach and what it's all about?
Yeah, so my name is Brenda Weiler. I'm here at the Spirit Room on Tuesdays and Thursdays currently, and I teach a class from noon to 1 p.m. So it's an hour-long class. I call it a gentle restorative class, so it's really open to all levels, people with any level of ability or experience. So I get a lot of new people who's, that's their first exposure to yoga, and so I keep it gentle as far as the movement that we do. I mean, we do some asana, but I kind of gauge who's there and what levels are there that day, and then we use a fair amount of props also for part of the class, which is a more traditional sort of restorative style, where we sort of build around the body with props to support it in different shapes. And yeah, I mean, I've been doing that class actually for about 10 years, and I've been doing it here in the Spirit Room for the last year, actually. Yeah, so.
Wow, 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get started?
So I started practicing yoga. My husband and I kind of started practicing around the same time. We were living in Portland, Oregon, and found, yes, it's Portland. And we found our teacher there. His name is Casey Palmer, and he runs a Ashtanga studio. It's specifically Mysore style, but he also does lead primary. But he's very much in the Ashtanga tradition and studied under Pattabhi Jois. And so that was kind of our first exposure was to that tradition. So we practiced in that tradition for quite a few years, probably close to 10 years. And then we moved back here 11 years ago. Yeah, maybe 11 years this summer that we moved back. And I had started teaching when I was in Portland. My teacher, Casey, encouraged me to start teaching. So sort of had his permission, which is kind of how it's, in that tradition, that's how it would be.
That's kind of how it's passed along.
And then, so I had started teaching a little bit out there, just the primary series, and then came back here and actually taught out of my home. We had bought a home right near downtown, and so it's funny to think back on it now, but we have a fairly good-sized front room in our house, and I should give my husband credit, we put all the furniture into our dining room, and we had doors, French doors in that room, so we could close it off, and then I hung tapestry. So they couldn't see that all the furniture was in there. So it kind of created just a big open space in the front of our house, and started having people come. I don't know, I mean, it started out as just like a few friends or people that I knew, or just kind of word of mouth, and yeah. So
that's a really fun way to start.
Yeah, it was super just organic and awesome. I mean, just in my house. My husband, at the time we had adopted a dog, which we still have, but he was only like 6 months, a year old. And he was a fairly anxious little guy, so he would take him out and walk him for like 2 hours while I had class, because we didn't want him like interrupting or barking. So my husband was so sweet, he would take him out.
Oh, that's a good man.
Can I come home?
Is it over yet?
Yeah, so I did that for, I don't know, almost a year. Like I would do a Wednesday class, Saturday class, and then that kind of started to feel like a little much for us.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I imagine having to rearrange the whole house.
Yeah, it kind of. I mean, we had our little like routine, or we had a rhythm, but it just, after a while, it's like. Yeah. And it was pretty limited. I could only fit like 8, 9 people total.
Oh yeah.
In a class, so I was like, let's.
So after a point, it doesn't become worth the time. It's like, well.
Yeah. And so. My brother Mark owned Etche Gallery, kind of further down Broadway at the time, in his first space, and then he was wanting to expand his business kind of around the same time that I was thinking of maybe getting a space. And so we kind of went in together, we opened Etche Art and Yoga on the 200 block, and then we were there for about 9 years doing our thing. yeah.
It's moved, hasn't it?
Yeah, yep, so that building got sold, about 2 years ago, year and a half ago, yeah. And they had other plans for the building, so Mark and I left, and his gallery is now in the Roberts Alley.
That's
which
what
is
I
behind the
thought,
Elementary
yeah.
building, yeah. And then I've been just kind of floating around, mainly being at the Spirit Room, and then at a different studio, Randy's studio, and just kind of renting space.
And you're reopening your studio then?
Yeah, and then we're working on a new building, actually my husband and I, just a couple blocks from here on 4th Street, 4th Avenue, and that's gonna open in the summer.
That's so
Well, late spring,
exciting.
early summer, that's our goal, yeah.
So you're just refinishing the building then, or?
We're completely renovating it, yeah. So it's a mid-century building built in the early 60s as the Chamber of Commerce building.
Oh.
So it's a very cool structure and cool design. But we've gutted it, and my husband's a dentist, so he's moving his dental practice in there.
Oh, nice.
He's been downtown in the professional building since we moved back, so he's been there for 11 years. And he's now at the point where he's kind of busting at the seams and needs a new space, a bigger space. So it was kind of a timing thing again, like
Everything just fell into
it fell
place
into
for you.
place, yeah. And then the building became available, and we just kind of took a leap of faith.
Sometimes you got it though. I mean, that's awesome that it's all just kind of
Yeah.
aligning for you.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
mean, what a good way to put like the two practices together. Because
Yeah.
I mean, someone's super stressed out about going into, get their teeth done,
Come do yoga first,
Yeah.
or after, both.
Or after, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to come after you got some Novocaine in you, I'm sure that'll be
Yeah.
fine too.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot more crossover than people think. I mean, Derek's been practicing yoga for as long as I have, so he has a really deep understanding of that side
Yeah.
of things. And so having a studio in that building with him just makes complete sense to us. I think to others, it's like, wait, what? You're bringing those two businesses together?
I think it makes sense.
It feels very natural to us because it's just such a huge part of our life. And but he actually does a lot of like comprehensive dentistry, so he works with like airway issues and breathing
Oh,
issues,
wow.
and so and just overall like comprehensive health, like chronic pain, all the stress. I mean, all of those things can be helped by yoga and meditation practices. So
I think a lot of people don't realize that yoga can be a form of meditation. Like I feel like the general public tends to go into it thinking it's just, let's just exercise and
work
actually,
out, yeah.
and work out and,
Mhm.
so I feel like, I don't know, to me that makes a lot of sense that you would put those two things in the same space.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we're gonna have to explain it a lot, but
Just put a sign.
It makes sense. Trust us.
Don't question it.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, no, it's just kind of it's been a dream of ours for a long time, and we found, especially this building, it feels like the right fit because we're both fans of mid-century and design, and I think we're kind of bringing it back to life.
Gotta save one of these buildings downtown anyway.
Yeah.
I feel like everything's changing so much.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had said like that your previous instructor had kind of like chosen you. Did your instructor tell you like why, or? I'm just
I
curious.
don't know if I'd use the word chosen, but he definitely, we became quite close with him, like very good friend with him, and spent a lot of time with him. And he just really supported us and nurtured us through a lot of really hard stuff at that time in our life. And yeah, I think he just encouraged, like, I think how it happened. His wife at the time was teaching at a different place in Portland. And I think they were going to India. I think that's how it worked out. They were going to India to study, and she needed help. She needed a sub
Oh.
for her Ashtanga class, and she and Casey asked me to do that, and I was like, I'm just your student. Like, I don't do that. And then he was like, I think you should try it. I think you're ready, or I think it's something you should look at. And I was like, ah. And I was scared to death, but I remember going to that first class. I was like shaking because I was so
Oh.
nervous. I was so nervous. But it just kind of, once I got into it, and it just felt right, and that's just continued as the years have gone on.
I feel like that's the nice thing too about something that like you're used to doing. like when you initially get up there, yeah, it's like nerve-wracking, but once you actually start going, like the nerves kind of fall away because you just start doing what you're supposed to.
Right, right. It just feels natural.
Is there something that you try to do in your classes to make new people more comfortable?
I mean, I hope I do multiple things. My intention is, like, the words that I use, definitely, I'm very conscious of how I explain things and giving them permission, like, over and over and over again in a class to just do what they want to do or what they can do, so that it's very low pressure. And the last thing I want is someone to come into class, well, get hurt, for one. That would be not something that I'm looking to happen. Or even almost more importantly, like for them to walk away feeling like they've been shamed or embarrassed, or that they feel like incomplete somehow. And I think that that's such a huge part of our culture. Like,
oh yeah,
you know, that's so prevalent. People feeling that way, coming out of experiences and just feeling like,
man, I did such a bad job.
yeah, like what's wrong with me? And so yeah, I just really strive in my classes to do the opposite, like to make people feel as safe as I can possibly make them feel, and yeah, just using my words and sometimes using touch, although it depends on the person.
Yeah, you kind of have to read them.
Yep, and also how I'm feeling on a particular day. There's certain days where I'm not feeling like I have good energy to touch people or to go there. So a lot of it is just verbal.
It's got to take a lot too to kind of review yourself on those daily bases to see if you're able to even give everything you need to other people. Like, it's a very, I don't want to call it like performance based, but it kind of in a way is like.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think of it, I don't know. I really actually see the classes sometimes as like I'll go into a class and typically whatever it is that I'm needing that day is what I'm going to try and bring out for the whole class, because that's what I need to hear, you know?
Yeah.
Like whether it's a theme or like a particular intention or message or focus, like it's usually because I need to hear it. And I just know, I mean, everyone needs to hear it.
Yeah, I
whatever
mean,
that is.
whatever positive thing it might be that day, you know, there's probably plenty of people in the world that need the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a nice way too to support everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's about like we're all on the same plane or the same level. It's like I might be leading them through like shapes or breath work or chanting or, you know, but we're all, like I'm not in any way at a different level than them. You know,
we're all just in the same boat.
Yeah, like we're all humans. We're all dealing with stuff all the time.
I think that's probably the part I like most about your class, because, you know, I always get here just as you're wrapping up.
Yeah.
And at the end of like each of your classes, I always hear them doing like the little chant at the end. Mm-hmm. And it just, I don't know, it makes me really happy every time.
Oh, that's good.
It's like, oh, I like that.
Yeah.
It seems like it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to say it's silly, but it's like, I'm sure it helps people to relax just at the very end of it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we tend to chant, especially in the class here, the noon class, we tend to chant Om and then Shanti, 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 which is just peace, peace, peace. And I like to close my classes with that. I just think it's very like, it just feels really authentic and like the right message to leave.
It's a good way to leave for the rest of your day, you know, that last little positive vibe, like whatever happens after you've left here, just remember that this was a good time.
Yeah, yeah. And the work that you did for just, I mean, it's like just a little hour, maybe it's 1 hour a week, or for some people they only get here once a month, or, I mean, but it's still worth something. It's
more than some people manage, and I feel like so many people need that. And they don't take the time for it, so it is great to actually be able to take care of yourself a little bit. So you were talking like you use props. and I see them all the time.
Yeah.
But I have no idea what you do with those.
Oh.
I admittedly give them to my daughter when she's here to build houses.
Yeah,
So-
well, they're good for that too. My daughter does that too. She climbs on the bolsters and makes towers.
Right? I
Yeah.
mean, you know, it keeps her busy for a little bit.
Yeah. No, I mean, they have lots of uses. But no, in class, like I said, we use them to support the body. So like you put yourself into a shape or pose, in a restorative pose typically. And so like say you're doing like Baddha Konasana, so you're opening your hips, your legs, kind of your belly, chest, but you could put, for some people, if they have restriction or pain in their hips, or they can't open to the same degree, like you can put bolsters underneath or blankets,
Oh.
and then the legs can relax into that. Instead of being like,
Yeah, instead of trying to force yourself
and you're just
into.
in pain, you know? So if you put a little support in there, then you relax into that, and it can really calm the nervous system in a different way.
Interesting.
And same with if you're lying back on a bolster or blanket, like opening the chest, just kind of gives it a little extra opening through the front body. We use blocks for lots of different things, like a supported bridge under the back, the sacrum, or you could use it with your hands to kind of lift, so you don't have to reach all the way to the floor. You can come up a little bit. You can take a block between your legs and kind of squeeze into that. I mean, there's all kinds of things. I took my restorative training was with Judith Lassiter, and she's kind of the queen of restorative yoga. She studied with Iyengar, and she's just sort of built this whole restorative world of yoga teachers and yoga students. It's great, and I think one of her slogans, I don't know if she said it, but I've seen like bumper stickers with it, but like saving the world or changing the world one shavasana at a time, which I think is so great. Like just really encouraging people overall just to slow down and like take time to rest. So she's really prop heavy. I mean, you could set up a pose, it'll take 10 minutes just to set it up.
Oh, wow.
And then you would stay in it for like 20 minutes. So one of her classes might be like 3 poses. And that's it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't teach quite that traditional as far as restorative. Like, I have done more of that. I mean, I have done that style, that approach, but typically, like the class I do here, we would do like a beginning meditation, and then you kind of warm up the spine, gentle movements, a lot of stuff cross-legged or on all fours, a lot of hip, pelvis stuff, and then maybe some standing poses, maybe some down dogs, but it's still really gentle, and you can modify for everybody. And then towards the end, doing more restorative, but maybe like 10 minutes of 2 poses, 2 or 3 poses. So you're spending like 3-4 minutes in a pose. So it just kind of depends. I mean,
Yeah,
depends
that's
who's
totally.
there and what time of year it is.
Yeah. It does make a difference too. I mean, in winter, we all are a little more stiff, I feel like, a little more slow moving. You're just like, I'm cold, I don't.
Yeah, it's kind of a time to retreat and a little bit move inward, and the restorative can be really nice for that time of year.
It's definitely changed my perspective a bit. Like I said, I kind of feel like the general public always sees it as being that kind of workout routine. So it's interesting to hear that, it's not even necessarily about stretching so much as it is about trying to open up other parts that, we all just kind of ignore. We all had basic biology. We know these things exist in the body, but for the most part, none of us think anything of them.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that the practice is basically dedicated to serving those parts we don't think much of that really do affect you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many different layers to these practices. I feel like I'm barely scratching the surface most of the time, even though I've been doing it for quite a while. And there's just always something else to learn. There's always another kind of like level to go deeper into.
All about the onions.
All about the onions. Big, big onion. And yeah, I mean, Ashtanga, where I started with, and I still love that practice. I don't do it as often. I don't do it as much as I used to, if not at all. And it's a very physical practice. And so I think people maybe would look at that and say it is, you know, more of a workout. But even within that, it's quite meditative. I mean, like you were saying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the sun salutation it's very meditative. It's like a meditation movement, basically. And there's just a lot of cleansing that's going on, I think, in a practice like that. But I've moved away from that a little bit, gotten more into the kind of restorative, and taught prenatal for a long time, and so I have kind of more of that perspective of a lot more inner work going on.
Would you say that's kind of like the motto of like your yoga practice is just more about like taking care of the inner self?
Mm-hmm, for sure. I mean, there is definitely movement. I mean, I still do an asana practice, and I'm still physical and active in my life, but I've just from my like life experiences, things I've been through, pregnancies and losses, and it's just caused a shift for me. So it is much more like it's very much an inner practice, and it's like a daily practice, whether I'm on my mat or not. It's like 24 hours a day.
Well, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, whatever takes care of yourself and gets you up in the morning.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make this the last question just because I don't want to keep you too long. But what would you say is your life goal? Doesn't have to be yoga related, just big broad question,
Wow.
your life goal.
I feel like there's probably a few. I mean,
And it's okay if there's more than one, but
yeah, I mean, I guess the first thing that popped in my head was to be happy.
it's a good goal.
Yeah, I mean, just to like feel joy, to feel contentment. Because even happiness can feel, like that's the
Empty.
first thing that popped in my head, but then I was like, nah.
It's a little empty.
Yeah, like I'm not, and I don't really believe that you can be happy all the time.
I don't think you're supposed to be, really.
No, it's like, so to make that even like your goal is kind of like, you're setting yourself up a little bit. So I would say like, yeah, like feeling contentment on a day-to-day basis and feeling connected to other people. It's really important to me.
Seems
So,
like a good goal.
yeah.
I mean, as social beings, that's
Mhm.
what we should all be
Meant to
striving
be.
for. Yeah, we're meant to be.
connected.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.